Greetings, and welcome to my channel. This is Sorcerer Tal again. You can also find me on Facebook in the Sorcerers Guild. Today, on Magical Theory, we are going to be discussing tulpas. Now, in the previous episode, we discussed 4 types of created beings. We discussed the tulpas. We also discussed servitors, egregores, and golems. Okay, so let's go over that for just a moment. A servitor is typically a temporary being. It is given a sigil and a form and works on the intent, form, charge, release model. It will, in that you give it a purpose, you then give it a form and a sigil, you charge that form, and then release it so that it can go out and fulfill its function. There are several types of replicating servitors that are designed to recreate themselves during certain scenarios or at certain times, but we will get into that in a later video. The tulpa, as we have said, is an imaginary friend. It is given a name and a very specified and distinct form, a visualized form. Now, the egregore is a much more permanent being, and for that reason it is given a vessel, such as a bottle or a precious stone like a crystal, where the energy is housed in when the egregore is not in operation. And then we also discussed the golem. The difference between an egregore and a golem is that a golem's astral form is matching its vessel. So with a golem, you would be using a doll or a statue as the vessel to house the energy in when the golem is not in operation. Okay, so more on the tulpa. There are three types of tulpas that we are going to be discussing today. The first is the personal tulpa, and this is the imaginary friend type that we have talked about. Now, when you're creating a tulpa, you want to give it an intent, what it does, how it behaves, and then you also want to give it a form and a name, and then also, on top of the name, you want to be very specific in how you visualize its form. Not just what it looks like, but what it smells like, how it feels, how it walks, how it talks, what it sounds like when it moves. Every detail you can imagine. You also want to think on its behaviors, what it does when you're not around, how it behaves at all times. You want to fill in every detail that you can, because the tulpa is part of you. It functions as part of your subconscious. If it had a vessel, you would say that its vessel is your subconscious mind, and it works from there. So you want to fill in all the details so that your subconscious mind doesn't fill them in for you, because those can be unpredictable. Okay, and so that is the personal tulpa. When you were creating it, like I said, you want to get all those thoughts and into its form, into your mind. And then you would imagine the tulpa, and imagine your hands charging the same as you would for drawing a sigil or a rune. So by that, I mean you start with the energy in the chest, working up the shoulders, down the arms, past the elbows, through the wrist, and into the fingertips. And then you would visualize the tulpa forming in front of you. And of course, if it gets larger, you would have to accept that with the visualization and make it much larger, because I imagine the tulpa isn't going to be small enough to encompass just you going like this. So you're going to want to start here and push it out, and then imagine the tulpa being created. Think upon all of those details that you gave it, and create the tulpa. When you are done, you will of course want to speak to the tulpa as often as possible, interact with it, play with the tulpa in ways that it likes to play, whatever it is that it likes to do. The more often you speak with and interact with this tulpa, the more real it will become to you, and therefore the more powerful and real it will become. Okay, so on top of that, we have the shared tulpa. And this is actually where the word tulpa originally came from. There were Buddhist monks that used tulpas when they founded their monasteries. So the founding members decided on what the tulpa would look like, its name, and how it would behave, and then they shared that idea with their initiates and recruits that joined them at the monastery, so that over time there are many people all believing in this same tulpa. And these, of course, become much more powerful because there is a lot more energy going into them with each individual believing in the tulpa. And these shared tulpas become much more powerful because of that, but they also become more unpredictable because there is more than one mind controlling this tulpa, more than one mind pushing energy into it and giving it thoughts as to how it will behave. It is operating within all of these people's subconscious, kind of like a shared collective unconscious amongst all of the people that believe in this particular tulpa. These, of course, can be created within any coven, cabal, cult, or any other group that chooses. A lot of your groups on Facebook have tulpas of this nature. Okay. Above that, we have the established tulpa. Now, this is the part where some of you may very strongly disagree with me, because what I mean by established tulpa is essentially what a lot of people would call gods. I'm not saying that all of the gods are tulpas and that none of them exist, but a lot of your most popular religions, their god forms are essentially tulpas, in my opinion. And what I mean by this is that these are established tulpas that have formed around a religion. And that is why these gods very much desire your worship and admiration, why we need to sing to them in church. Because every time that we focus on them, every time that we give our belief to them, we make them more powerful. That is why the Christians must pray to their God nightly, so that he may be fed that energy. That is, if you believe, of course, that these type of beings are tulpas. If they are, that of course means that they stick within certain structured programming, and that they are just as dependent on us as we are on them. Okay, so that will be it for today's episode of Magical Theory. Don't forget to join us on Friday for another episode of Sorcery in Action. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please take the opportunity to do so now. Until then, bright blessings and an interesting fate. This has been Sorcerer Tal.